Hello, welcome to the February Mobility Flow. All right, so for today, you're going to need some kind of dowel or PVC, anything that you can use. You can even use a band, but you are going to put it between your hands and you're going to work on some shoulder threading. So the most important thing with this is to find a spot on the PVC pipe or dowel where your fingers are able to stay in contact with that dowel. Ideally, you want at least the 3 middlemost fingers to be able to stay in contact with that dowel. And you're bringing it all the way forward and all the way back. Band is a little bit easier because you're going to have a little bit of that stretch as you bring it around the back of the shoulders. But you're going to start with 10 repetitions of the shoulder threading. Another focus point is to keep your abs engaged. You don't want to have your ribs hyperextending and flaring. Then you're going to follow it with around the worlds. So for this, you are going to pick one direction and start with 5 repetitions going in a circle around that way first. And then when you reach 5, you're going to do 5 repetitions going in the other direction. Bonus points if you can identify the music in the background. Then you are going to place your dowel along your back and you are going to work on a hinge. And so for this, the top hand should be right at basically like the base of your skull, and your bottom hand should actually be in the small of your low back. I actually scooted my hand up right there. Initially, I had it on my tailbone, but you want it to be at the small of your back and the base of your neck, with the goal being as you shoot those hips back, you have both hands and both body parts staying in contact with that dowel. So for this, if you don't have a dowel, you can use like a broomstick, pretty much anything that's straight. This would be a little bit more difficult with the band because you need something that is in fact stiff. And you're going to do 10 of these repetitions, again, focusing on hinging at the hip and shooting those hips back. So you are done with your dowel now. You can move it out of the way. Then you're going to get into your squat stance. And again, we're going to be focusing a lot on squat mobility. We just did a little bit for upper body, but finding a comfortable bottom position where you can kind of hang out. Then putting your hands on the ground, straightening those hips up, getting a good hamstring stretch. Shift your hips around and then come back down. Focus on pushing those knees apart. And we'll come back to this a little bit later too, and hopefully you'll find that you're able to sit in that squat depth a little bit more comfortably. So this is a really good resting position even as the day goes on. If you find yourself sitting a lot, just come down and hang out in that squat and get comfortable with it. It's really, really good for your body to use this as a resting position during the day. All right, so for this, we're gonna have a progression and a regression. So your feet are gonna be toed out pretty much to like 10 and 2 and pretty wide. So you can use your hands to get down. You can also use a rack in front of you. This is basically Cossack squats. So you want that heel to stay in touch with the floor. And then if it's hard for you to get up and down or into this position easily, just use your hands to go from side to side. And again, you could also use this with a band overhead, or you can use it with a rack. The progression would be just full body weight. And again, make sure that those toes are set to more of like a 10 and 2 position, and a pretty wide stance tends to be the easiest to get in and out of this position. Again, at any point, you can bring your hands down to the ground, use them to get in and out of this position, or have the rack or the band near you to get in and out. And then again, walk your feet in. And once again, come into that deep squat position. And even after doing just those few Cossack squats, you should find that it's a little bit more comfortable to sit in that deep squat. So now you're going to come to a seated position, hold on to that ankle, and you're going to do some ankle rotations. And then focus on stretching, pushing that foot back, and then you can switch sides. Same thing, just ankle rotations on the other side. All right, so now we're going to come to a standing hip flexor stretch. And this is one that's typically done incorrectly. So pointing to the glute because you want to really engage the glute. So don't just shift your hips forward. You want to really engage that glute. Keep those abs tight and push forward with the glutes. Those glutes forward, really pushing them forward. Keep that core engaged. And you should feel a pretty good stretch at the front of that right quad. Then bringing your other leg up. Again, don't just shift forward. You want to engage the glutes. Push forward, keeping that core engaged. Holding the stretch. And again, coming to that deep squat position. Now this should feel pretty slick. Take some time to touch down each knee. Should feel like your hips are nice and loose with some pretty good mobility now. Again, forcing those knees out. And then come to a kneeling position. You can push back into child's pose. Walk those hands forward. You should get a really good stretch through the back of your lats. Walk those hands over to the left. And in doing so, you should feel a really good stretch through the back of that right lat, kind of pointing that out right there. Use your lower body to pull against that upper body. And walk those hands to the other side. And then come up to your tabletop position. And inhale, let that belly drop. Exhale, round through that upper back. Work at your own speed with this. Inhaling, letting that belly drop, and then when you exhale, rounding through that upper back. And then push back into your child's pose. Your body should feel nice and relaxed, loose, and ready to tackle whatever you have going on today. Walk those feet forward. And let your upper body just hang, holding onto those elbows. And bring it up. Thank you so much.